meant that the gas gauge always indicated she had a full tank, even when Maude was running on empty. I managed that problem for years by simply keeping track of the mileage between fill-ups. Daddy was one of those guys who always maintained that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But once the replacement tank itself developed a slow leak, I decided the time had come to redo the entire system with a new fuel pump, filter, fuel lines, gas tank, and sending unit. That took the better part of the day. When the job was completed and dutifully recorded in the Bible, I went on to the second part of the job, bringing Maude's annual winterizing routine up to snuff. I don't have to work at a regular job because I'm more or less an heiress, albeit an unlikely one. Daddy grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Despite his learning disability, he managed to bluff his way through grade school, but dropped out of high school his junior year. Because he'd been held back a couple of times, he was already 18 by then. He went straight to the Army recruiter's office and joined up. After serving in the Army, he came home as a full-fledged mechanic and went to work in a garage owned by a friend of the family. He may have been short on reading, writing, and arithmetic, but when it came to repairing vehicles, he was a whiz. As a working mechanic, he made good money. He was also handsome as all get out, enough so that he managed to reel in a true beauty. Unfortunately, my parents' natural good looks skipped a generation and weren't passed along to me. When my son Tad came along, he was a handsome devil too, Daddy's spitting image. Although I've seen photographs of my mother, I have no actual memory of her, since I was only a year old when Daddy pulled up stakes. With me and my older brother Chad in tow, we left Tulsa in the dust and moved to faraway Anchorage. Once there, Daddy found steady employment in yet another garage, this time as the chief mechanic and manager. He took the position primarily because it came complete with an upstairs 2-bedroom apartment. By then, Chad was old enough to go to school. As for me, if there was a preschool for kids my age in the neighborhood, Daddy didn't send me there. His idea of childcare was to stuff me into a pair of Oshkosh overalls, carry me downstairs, and let me wander around the garage so he could keep an eye on me while he worked on cars. For as long as I can remember, Daddy and his friends called me Button. I didn't find out until the day of Daddy's funeral that the origin of that name was due to the fact that when I was little, everyone in the garage, workers and customers alike, thought I was cute as a button. Daddy always passed himself off as a widower, which, as it turns out, was more or less the truth. Although we had some interactions with Daddy's folks back in Oklahoma, there was never any contact with our mother's side of the family. That was something that puzzled Chad and me, especially when Daddy completely stonewalled any questions we asked about her. According to him, she was dead, and that was that. Chad was always rebellious, and he and Daddy never saw eye to eye. If Daddy said something was up, Chad insisted it was down. After graduating from high school, he left home and joined the Air Force instead of the Army. On his first leave, he went straight back to Oklahoma and dug up the real story. When I was 6 months old, our mother had run off with a smooth-talking car salesman in town who earned twice as much as Daddy did. A little more sleuthing on Chad's part revealed that the 2 runaway lovebirds died in a car crash in Texas less than 2 months after leaving Tulsa. Since the divorce was never finalized, Daddy was a widower, all right, just not in the usual sense of the word. Once Chad clued me in on what had really happened, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, as far as any kind of father and son relationship was concerned. Daddy simply wrote my brother out of his life. To my knowledge, they never exchanged another word. After that, the only time they ever occupied the same room was when they both came to the mortuary to attend my son's funeral. Once Chad was out of Daddy's life, he was mostly out of mine as well. The truth is, the 2 of us had never been especially close. For one thing, I was 5 years younger than he was. When we were kids, he constantly gave me all kinds of grief, calling me a spoiled brat and claiming I was Daddy's favorite, which, come to think of it, was probably true. When Daddy passed away 10 years ago in 2012, I let Chad know about Daddy's passing, of course, but he refused to come to the funeral. Once the will